Hello, everybody, and welcome to Riftbound Ramblings. I'm your host, Barrett, and today is August 27th, which is a Wednesday. And although there is not any real new news or updates for Riftbound, I went ahead and realized that I was forgetting some of the tournaments that happened this past week. So, this is the tournament week recap of week 6, part 2. And we have 2 events to cover. Now, throughout the weekend that was going on for the first Chinese regional, which we've already gone over in the last video, there was also a Rift Lab Clash. The first one and second one took place on the 21st, and another one took place on the 22nd. And basically how these worked out was they played 4 rounds based off of, size, and if you were undefeated after those 4 rounds, your list was featured on Piltover Archive. So, today I will be going over just the undefeated lists that were from these 2 events. But first, we have a little bit of news. The Nexus Knight Chinese promos have been shown to us, and this is a incredible looking Teemo, and I can't believe they wrote the words GG Easy on the back of it, which means I'm hoping that we get these in America, of course, but Nexus Knights being the tournaments of which you can play at your local game stores, I'm pretty sure that can also help you, get some advantages, and these promos, of course. So these promos, the sought after one, I'm assuming, is this Teemo, or maybe it's included in every single pack. I don't know. But there's also these special stylized runes for your rune deck that look ever so slightly different, and I'm not sure if they're foil. I don't know. I can't read this. But it'd be very interesting that if it's like the Teemo is guaranteed in every pack, but then you also get a random rune, or the Teemo is the rare promo to get. Other than that, you at least get a rune. So it'll be interesting to see how these pan out and what they look like. And of course, I hope that we do also get them in English. But these look really cool. But moving on, we've got your first deck. So this is the Rift Lab Clash. Number 1, there were 64 players, which means they played 4 rounds. So these are every single deck that went 4-0. And the first one we have is Darius, given to us by Gonzitrax, which he also got second place playing Darius, a similar list as this one, back on August 1st. And it's pretty straightforward. Of course, most people are going into Darius the baited hook deck, which makes sense. Killing off units, getting things with bigger might, and etc., while using some very strong accelerate units or Vayne, that comes in ready if your opponent has a battlefield. So, Kaisa, Vayne, and just like really taking advantage and trying to get points very early as this aggro deck with a little bit of removal, of course, hidden blades, falling stars, and things like cleave to help you get there. And then eventually your Dravens get big enough, and Draven helps you get your end-game points, basically, and Grain Stratagem as well. That being said, the sideboard here, again, a little bit more removal with Cole the Weak. You also have some gear removal, which makes sense, an extra Falling Star, and I do like the 1x Leona here. And, of course, the Call to Glories. I don't see specific ways on how we are getting buffs. It looks like it's just Trifarian Glory Seeker, which makes sense. So maybe if you find those early Call to Glories, maybe help out as some extra combat tricks. But congratulations to Gonzitrax and getting first play or getting undefeated at this tournament. Moving on, we've got another one. Prismaticism gives us another deck of theirs. They have not played Teemo yet, at least with success, but they finally have now. Previously, they played Darius and Jinx and got second place with both of those, but went undefeated here in the Rift Lab Clash. Congratulations, Prismaticism, but I really like this. And we are playing some new cards that we haven't necessarily seen in Teemo decks of the past. Still seeing the Dr. Mundo here as a late game drop. And then 3 copies of Raza the Sunderer, really taking advantage of how quickly you can get cards into your trash, because, I mean, this essentially is kind of like an aggro deck and has very low-costed cards. They very easily get in there. So it makes a lot of sense. The sideboard is all over the place with either some extra copies of things that we're already running, like Fight or Flight, but then also, some spicy one-ofs of things that we're not playing in the main board, like Retreat or Fading Memories, extra Sprite Mother in here, Singularity, etc. So I really like this list. I kind of like how diverse it is and the amount of different things that are going on with it and the stacked decks, but this is not a Nocturne variant, which is something that we saw at least with at the Chinese regional, and in fact, this Teemo list isn't even playing the Teemo that looks at the top 5. This is very much using quicker, like accelerated cards and tricks from like the Chaos domain to get cards in your discard pile to let things like Dr. Mundo and Raza have success. So it makes sense. It really does. But it is a differently shaped Teemo, and I'm glad that they went 4-0 to showcase a different way to play that deck. Moving on, we've got Leona. This is by Pedro Silva, this is their first appearance on Piltover Archive, at least for an event showcase. So congratulations, Pedro, on going undefeated with your Leona list, and I love Leona, so I'm excited to talk about this one. Lots of 3-ofs here, of course, the strong cards, Sona, Zenith Blade, Shen, Solari Shield Bearer, Call to Glory. All of these make sense. Zonia's Hourglass, Rune Prison. I like just the full commitment to the spells that really synergize with what the deck is doing. Of course, you're playing Calm Domain, so Defy makes a lot of sense. Discipline makes a lot of sense. And we are even playing 1 copy of the Calm Domain Leona and 3 copies of the Order Domain Leona. 6 and 6 on the runes makes sense. And even the sideboard here, very concentrated on what we're really trying to do. Salvages that come in, I'm sure, for gear-heavy decks or like Aurora decks. Spirit's Refuge, giving your guys deflect, probably really good when they come in against Kaises and such like that. And then even 2 copies of Windwall for being able to counter any spell, not just the ones that Defy is able to get, which is only the low-cost one. So I like where this is going, and they went undefeated, which is a very good sign. I'm a big fan. And then the last deck that went undefeated in the first Rift Lab Clash, this is by Presto, who has played Ari before in the past, getting 5th place with that back on August 1st. And they played Lee Sin this time, which is really exciting because we're playing a single copy of the Calm Domain Lee Sin, which I love. And then the rest of this deck is very much like high value, trying to keep your big units on the board. It almost is even like when I see things like we're not playing Mask, so we're not doing like a Master Yi impersonation, but you are just allowed to play very strong units, and like Kiana's, that have deflect, Udyr that are really trying to take advantage of spending a lot of buffs on them that can get more and more over and over again, which like, we're not even playing the bar, so like you can't even get that on there. But I do appreciate how it's just I'm going to give buffs to my units, I'm going to spend them, or I'm going to keep them on the right units to give them a little more sticking power, and we're going to take more advantage of using things like On Guard, Charm, Defy to keep our units alive or do some board shenanigans. Of course, the Zonia's Hourglass and the White Flame Protectors. The 1x Blitzcrank in the sideboard is also, I like that a lot, but of course other sideboard pieces that we're seeing a lot more people put are the Unyielding Spirits and the Sabotages instead of being in main boards. But congratulations here to Presto, this getting undefeated with Lee Sin, which is a very good sign for anybody that wants to play this kind of character. Moving on to Rift Lab Clash 2. This one was 81 players instead of the 64 from the last one. And we have a Kaisa deck given to us by Pew Q. This is their first ever appearance on Piltover Archive for an event. So congratulations, Pew Q. And essentially, this is a pretty straightforward, lots of 3x copies of cards Kaisa list. Nothing wrong with that, of course, but very focused on what it's trying to do, and that's why you can see a lot of success when it comes to the tournament play and trying to get through the Swiss rounds of randomly having opponents. Sideboard here, of course, including 2 copies of Vi, the full 3 copies of Acathian Rain, which is really nice, and the extra 2 copies of Retreat also kind of makes sense to me, and a bonus little copy of Legion Rearguard with only 1 in the main board. But I like this a lot. It's very straightforward. It makes a lot of sense. You have stuff to play early. You have stuff to play like in the middle of the game at 4 and 5. And then, of course, Thousand-Tailed Watcher having a lot of success in Kaisas later on in the game. Makes a lot of sense. And congratulations. Moving on, we just talked about him. We have Ganzi Trax once again getting undefeated in the second Rift Lab Clash. He played both days, or they played both days, and immediately got undefeated for both of them, as I've already denoted, of course, for the 821 Darius undefeated. And yes, the main deck, if anyone's paying attention at home, the main deck is actually the exact same, I'm pretty sure. But the difference being sideboard changed a little bit. We decided to add in things like back-to-back and then an extra copy of Cole the Week, but the rest of the kind of stuff that's in there is the same. So I'm not going to go over too far in depth of this deck, but it makes a lot of sense and it is obviously very successful. So Gonzi Tracks, keep up the good work and keep on doing well for the Darius players out there. Moving on, we've got another Kaisa list, and this is from Jay. If you're a big Jay fan from all the tournaments he's played in this past month, remember he's been playing Kaisa back on the 1st of August, and then he played Master Yi back on the 8th. This is a updated, new and improved Kaisa, playing a little differently than what we were doing before. Again, a lot of 3Xs on the cards that really matter on the lower end of the curve, but mainboarded 2X copies of Acathian Rain, 2 copies of Thousand Eye Watcher, and Darius is here. Makes a lot of sense. The sideboard is obviously going to be a lot different with the Mundo, 1 copy of Acathian Rain, unchecked power, which is a big one, and then that 3rd copy of the Watcher being here as well. Only 1 copy of Retreat across the entire board, which is only in the sideboard, and then that 3rd copy of Cleave also to be there. So congratulations here for Jay for this deck, and yeah, keep up the good work. I'm not too sure why there's only 2 battlefields here. I don't know, but I'm sure there was a 3rd one for the event. And then we have another Kaisa list. This one was given us to by Kedgius, and this list is ever so slightly different, focusing a little bit more on some more early game units. You have a 1x copy of Pouty Poro, extra copies of Smokescreen, the full 3 Dariuses, the 1 copy of Riptide Rex in the main board, and then the sideboard looks a little different, kind of almost like a combination of both, I would say, of the other Kaisas we saw. Vi, Noxus Hopeful, Riptide Rex, double Acathian Rain, and the 1 Mundo. 1 extra bonus copy of Retreat, and another bonus copy of Cleave. So this one kind of makes sense as well. More so leaning on the Fury Domain, as you can kind of see, early game-wise, and then more leaning on the Mind Domain stuff in the middle of the game and late game, of course. Like most Kaisa lists. So yeah, looks pretty good. And then, of course, our last list we have is once again another Kaisa deck. This one given us by Freaks, though. So if you're a Freaks fan, we haven't seen them do anything tournament-wise, at least for August, but we do have them on some of the past July tournaments, playing Kaisa, getting 4th place back on the 18th, and then also Victor getting 5th on the 25th. And again, another kind of Kaisa list. I like how this one's mainboarding 1 Mundo and sideboarding another copy. Mainboarding 0 copies of Sprite Mother and sideboarding all 3 copies, just depending on what kind of matchup you're against and whether you need to bring them in versus a deck where you need to get more points earlier on and can kind of contest those. But I like the 2 mainboard singularities. I'm a big fan of that one, but sometimes it can set you back quite a bit. And of course, the 2 mainboard copies of Acathian Rain and only 1 in the sideboard. Also, Iron Ballista is a 3x on the sideboard. I know some people really like this, but other people are kind of meh about it. But it's not too bad if I do say so myself. And of course, they went undefeated today. Love that. Congratulations, Freaks, and welcome back. I'm doing some more good stuff in the tournaments. But that's going to be it for all of the decks today. Thanks so much for sticking around for this video. I'm hoping that we get some more news, hopefully either on Thursday or Friday, and of course I will release those. But if not, I will be doing some commentary for Riftbound tomorrow with a good friend of mine, Tam Cardwell, on his Twitch channel. So I will post an update somewhere, hopefully on my YouTube channel, on the where I can like post things, but I'm not sure where else I can help you find that. But feel free to come in and say hello. Of course, if you like the channel, go ahead and subscribe so you don't ever miss an update or a video from me. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, comment down below if you like some of these decks or some of these legends that are not necessarily Kaisa. And of course, no victors here. And of course, also no sets to be seen ever since the weekend of the Chinese regional. But that being said, we have another Chinese regional this weekend, and I'm excited to look and see what changes compared to the first one. Thanks so much for watching this video, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.